Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the vlog. So today I have some exciting news. I've been hinting around at this and talking about it forever, and I finally pulled the trigger on it. All the parts did arrive, and I was waiting for Black Friday because I did want to get a good deal on some of the stuff. So the other thing I was kind of thinking about was the Hyperspark, and you guys know that the Hyperspark is basically like the Mac Daddy of ignition controls. So you can do timing, you can control everything from it. And really for the sniper kit, you're going to get more benefits from using the Hyperspark and getting the module and everything. Now it does cost a little bit more, so there is some hidden cost involved to putting Holley Sniper on your OBS Silverado, or really anything for this matter. This kit could go on this car. So basically what we have here, I'm going to do a little unbox. I'm going to show you guys what you're going to get in the kit, what I chose to do, and how we're going to install this in the old body Silverado. Now, backstory on this truck in case you guys don't know, it started out as a 4.3. We swapped it to a 327 that is carbureted, and we're looking to, you know, optimize that and put fuel injection back on it. So that's kind of the idea today. So today what we're going to be doing, I'm not going to get all of this done today because there is a lot of things in the kit that we've got to go over, and there is a lot of things I have to change. Now, let's go ahead and get started into the unboxing some of this stuff. Alright boys, so among all the stuff that you get in your kit, this is the extra part I was going to tell you guys about. So basically this is our Hyperspark, now the computer, that's going to control the timing to where this distributor, coil, and box are linked to the rest of the kit. So basically they do include everything you need. I've got the harness right here. It actually looks a lot more intimidating than it really is. I mean, you've got a plug here that goes into this box. You feed it power from the battery, hook this into the sniper kit itself, and then you've got some plugs here for the distributor and also on the coil. So it's really not that bad. The biggest issue in the OBS truck is going to be hiding some of this stuff. Now, the good thing is I think I've picked out where I'm going to mount this. So there is a lot of wires running around on this side, and I really don't use my washer fluid. I mean, this is a race truck, right? So why do we need washer fluid? So actually what I'm going to do is mount the controller box here. I'm going to remove the washer fluid. We're going to mount our box here. We're going to run the wires down and around to the battery, so it'll be nice and neat. And this is a good centralized location for the box. I feel like this is probably the best place to put it. You know, if you go putting it in the dash and you need to get to it, I feel like it's going to be a pain, and I've got to stand on my head and run the wires. I don't want to do that. So I want to put it here so I can run wires straight into the dash. It'll be super easy, and I can get to the distributor, and I can get to the battery. So that is how I'm going to do this. Alright, so here's what I chose to go with. I ended up doing the kind of a bronze gold looking style. I thought it was pretty neat, so I wanted to switch it up. Now this does have everything you need to make it talk to the box, and the instructions are all here. I've got my fuel pump that I'm going to be externally mounting. Let's see here, we got our O2 sensor. It's going to be going in. We got everything to install the O2 sensor, which is like a clamp. And it's sort of like a band clamp, but you drill in for it into your exhaust. Not too bad. I think it should be pretty straightforward. Got a coolant temp sensor here we're going to install. Now, one other thing I did want to talk to you guys about. I want the stock gauges to work in this truck too, just because they're kind of handy. So we are going to be leaving the coolant temp there and probably installing the coolant temp for the Holley down here on this other side. Or we may do it in the head too. I think there's actually a place in the head we can put this, but probably going to go with into the intake for the coolant temp. Now this is also going to be the touchscreen that we're going to hide inside the dash. Of course the rest of the kit I done went over, and this is also something that you use to talk to. It's the coil driver. So I think everything should be here. Now one other thing we are going to have to get into is, since we have Hyperspark, we need to make sure that the sniper computer is up to date with the latest software, and that's one thing it does go over. So we're going to make sure that we have our latest version. Now all this stuff you guys can find at Holley or go on YouTube. Of course there is tons of stuff. If you're on their channel, it goes over everything in this kit. Now this is kind of just an overview, quick rundown. I have some of the more detailed parts in here as far as the line and everything in case you need to I have the line in case you need to run a return. There's some fittings in here. There's some filters in here. You got these EFI specific clamps as well. So they do include a lot of really nice stuff in the kit, and of course your installation instructions are in there too. Even down to the gasket for the throttle body to mount down. So we pretty well have everything in here. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull the truck forward, start breaking it down. But I think the first thing I want to do today, guys, is I want to get this box mounted. I want to go ahead and make sure that this coil will fit onto the existing bracket on the back of the intake. So today mostly is going to be working with this stuff, getting everything set up, and the wires ran. That's going to be the big challenge here. And then the other big challenge is getting it into the cab and making sure that it looks neat. Alright guys, so I ended up pulling the washer fluid tank off. I didn't film all that, but there was basically, I think there was like 3 bolts, one on the top, and left, right, bottom, whatever. So got all those undone, and we got our sniper now set up here, and drilled some holes, drilled them 1/8 inch, and run 7/32 like self-tappers in it. So this thing is nice and neat right there. I'm going to go back and I am going to clean up this fender where, you know, the washer fluid tank had made kind of a mess. So we'll clean the fender up, and don't worry, these control arms are going coilovers. Oops, I didn't mean to spoil that one. We are going coilovers, so we're going to do away with those. And the harness, I did check. This is a good location for this truck, just because the wires can go into the cab and they can reach the coil. So now that we've got all this figured out and this guy's mounted, we should be good to go. So here's one of the issues I found with the ignition coil when I went to install it, is the sheer size of this coil, hand for reference, is huge compared to the coil that I had. So the coil that I had it on a little bracket. I'm going to show you guys this one. So for your old small block Chevy, this does just fine, okay? There's a couple bolts on the back of an intake on an Edelbrock that we were able to pick up and use, and then we had some spacers down here with it, and it actually worked very nice, and it was neat. And it was tucked away and kind of hid at the back of the engine. However, this coil is so big, it is massive, guys, without some serious, like, you know, taking some time, making some spacers and water jetting a bracket and doing a lot of work, I don't see a good way to mount that back there, you know. And then, yeah, another thing to consider with an ignition coil, heat. You know, the heat at the back of that engine is immense. It's going to be a lot of heat, so this thing's going to, you know, it's going to be taking a beating with all that heat. So one way I'm going to beat the heat is by mounting it right here on the firewall. So that was probably the best place to put it. And it's mounted pretty neat. You know, it looks pretty good. I'm fairly happy with it. I think it kind of looks like it's supposed to be there. Really, it's not bad. But yeah, the benefit of this, though, is I could just make me a coil wire, come around this side, up and over the booster, and that's pretty straightforward. And as far as the rest of the harness, I've got some extra harness here, so I'm going to have to do a little hiding some wires. But, you know, it plugs in right here. And I'm going to hide the rest of these wires down under here, so you'll see just a little bit of wire coming up to the coil. And the rest of this I'm going to have to extend. So the power and ground wires, obviously, this is intended to be, you know, if my battery was over here, this would be cake. But I don't really have a good place to mount it on the passenger side fender. So I will be taking these power wires, and I'm going to make a harness and put all the wires in it and run them to the distributor. And then the rest of the power and ground are going to run down this side. So one other thing I would recommend buying for, you know, if you guys are going to take this one on, go out to any parts store and get yourself some of this conduit. There's 10 foot of it. It's like $10, $11. It's totally worth having. It makes for a really neat wiring harness, and it's just simple. It just works. I've actually got a lot of this stuff already in here. As you can see, a lot of my other wires, which I've disconnected my battery, are all in this same style harness, and it works fantastic. It does a good job hiding wires, and it just looks neat.
Thoughts get thrown around, but we keep going on believing, on and on till we're all
Alright guys, we're about to put the distributor in. Went ahead and switched the gear with the one that come out of the truck, just so that way it's mated together and it'll be ready to go. And right now what we're getting ready to do is pull this thing up on number 1. We're going to bump it over with Dad's little homemade tool he's got to bump the starter over. I've got the plug out, so we're going to bring it all the way up, put the distributor in it, and then we're going to start going through the instructions on the Holley as far as how to sync everything. I've got the clear cap in here and everything that we need to change out, so we get our rotor button pointing towards number 1. And that should do it. I've got a gasket and everything in there. But we're going to go ahead and set this up, bump it over. I've got everything out of the way now, taped off. I've got to do some more work with the wiring harness, but I've figured out where my hots are, so I pretty well know where I need to go with this thing. We've got it timed up. It's on 0. We brought it up on the compression stroke, and I just slid the distributor in, and it's pointing to a position of number 1, which is, this looks backwards, but it's not. It's okay. It's where it needs to be. Usually the rotor will point to 1, but in this particular case, the wiring harness is going to interfere with the oil sending unit, so I went the other route. Plus, we want to see the Sniper EFI exposed too, so I went ahead and done that. But we're good to go. Everything's at 0. We're on a compression stroke. This guy's at number 1. He's happy. So now we're going to move on to the throttle body. We're going to set this in and start hooking up all our inlet and outlet connections. And then we're going to hook up our wiring harness. And then I'm going to have to go in the cab and start running everything for the controller here. Once we get all that hooked in, we'll go underneath and hook our O2 up. Then it's going to be going through a lot of wiring, which is going to be just making everything, communicate, talk. And the fuel system is going to be tomorrow, guys. It looks like it's going to be all I can do to get the rest of it done tonight. I've got some fittings here. I've got some filters here, installation instructions. But we're going to get into all that probably. There'll be 2 parts of this video, so this is kind of the first section. I may have grease all over me. I probably have grease all over me. So, I'll have to pick this one up here on the second half of this video. But basically what else we had to do was, if you're installing your distributor, you're also going to have to turn that oil pump gear to make the 2 line up. So I did have to get inside this truck, like actually sit in it, and get a flathead down in the back of the intake and turn the oil pump shaft there and make everything line up. So far so good. Alright guys, so we're getting ready to put our fittings on here. We're getting real close here. And I did go ahead also, and we just checked our power source, and we got the green light here. So the little red wire that we tapped into does have 12 volt switched ignition all the time. I'm pretty sure that's like a throttle position sensor or something off the old harness. Almost certain it's what we wired it into. So it's kind of what we're doing now. It's just checking out our fittings and stuff. It's going to be pretty tight because we've got a 5/16 return and everything in the Sniper kit's 3/8. So we've got a little issue there we're working toward right now. But I think we'll be all right. So I just set this thing on here, and dang boys, look at this thing. It's huge. Way bigger. Where it's got all the, regulators and everything built into it. It just looks so much bigger. And I think it's actually 800 CFM, so it's quite a lot larger than a 650, so this thing really ought to push it. Now, I haven't bolted anything down, but I just want to kind of show you what this looks like before we get too far. Alright guys, what is going on? It is day 2, part 2, whatever you want to call it, of this little episode here. And basically last night, we worked into the night a little bit, took a break, came back, and here's what we ran into. I didn't film a lot of this because it was so much trial and error, and I wanted to kind of show you guys what the issue is. And this is like those tedious things that you don't think about when you're putting something together and you read the instructions and you're like, oh, okay, I got it, this is easy. Then you come across this. So for you guys, OBS guys, or anybody with a cable, this may apply to you. The bracket that I had was an AED throttle linkage bracket. Now that works fine with a 4150 series carb, okay? So with a 4150 series, you can see that, obviously I have more room at the linkage and everything just lines up a little better for my old bracket. This is actually the old carb. And Now with this, what happened was I actually had to make these spacers. Now they're kind of crude, and I will be buying a different bracket, but this is just to kind of get us going, and there's no interference. And we also had to change the throttle return springs. But basically what happened is, you could see how close everything is, and without this bracket in place, this little adapter bracket, if we bolt it here where it's supposed to go, this crashes into the linkage. There's no way it'll work. So what we ended up having to do was make these little spacers. And they weren't really that bad to make. You know, we just basically drilled a couple holes, rounded the edges, and called it a day. And it's really secure. You know, I'm moving the entire truck with that bracket. So obviously it's not going to go anywhere. So it should be just fine for what we're doing. But this is the kind of stuff to think about once you start getting into the sniper, and once things are starting to bolt on and go together. These are the little problems you're going to run into. Another thing, guys. If you're an OBS guy and you're saying, man, where am I going to get a 12-volt switch source? Okay, so there's a couple easy ones, but right now I'm pretty sure I'm running this off of a throttle position sensor. So this wire is hot at all times when the key is on, cranking, and in the run position. And that's what you want. Now you'll see a voltage drop down to like 10 volts or so when you're actually cranking. That's fine. You're going to see a little voltage drop. That's okay though. It's going to get power, and that's all that matters. So essentially, this one wire coming from the map sensor or throttle position, any of those, is going to be hot all the time. So that worked out great. Now, the other issue is the rat's nest that's behind here. I repeat, do not run a hot wire from this ignition, the old coil driver from the hot here. Do not run it from there. It says that in big bold letters in your kit. Do not run power from your old ignition coil. It has interference. It will not let it operate correctly. So I've put that up here out of the way for now. I've got the box off. This is one of the huge issues with these old trucks, is the wiring in them. It is a nightmare. So I've got a box that covers like every bit of this, and it's over here. So if you guys building one of these trucks, I highly recommend finding one in good shape or restoring your old one, because unless you want to rip your whole harness out, you are definitely going to need it. Now, I also hid all my wires over here in the fender. It worked out pretty nice. So hiding all these in the fender did a good job. Made me a little plate to cover it. So I still have my old harness in here in case I need it for whatever reason. If I have some odd issue that comes up, it's not going to be a big deal. So that's just kind of a quick rundown on where we're at today. And also, another issue that you guys are probably going to be asking me about later is the fuel. So what is fantastic about the old body style trucks is that they have a return and they have an inlet metal line already at the top at the back of the engine where the old 4.3 would have been. So what we've done, we've got our return hose right here. We've got our inlet down there. They give us fuel hose that's 3/8. It's high pressure rated, has clamps and everything. We're going to take those clamps and install them. And next thing's going to be getting the inlet to this, starting to run fuel. And I've got to start bolting in some stuff for the harness. And also went ahead and pulled my old tack out of there. I had a big Sunpro tack in it, and I have no reason to use it now with the sniper telling me what RPMs I'm turning. And these are your cutout wires. So I've tried to separate accessory from like necessity here. And I also have everything ready to make my coil wire. And I'm also going to be ready to start wiring up the box that we mounted yesterday on the wall, and it looks great. So there we go, guys. There's kind of an update on what happened last night and what we run into and some things we had to take care of. And you know, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this so far. You know, if you like what you see, also, man, be sure and subscribe and check out all the other stuff that we did to get this truck to this level. It actually started out as a V6, so if you want to go back and check it out, be sure and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and you know, let me know what you think about the old muscle truck. Let's go ahead and finish this thing up and try to get this thing rolling maybe later today. Alright guys, so we've dropped the distributor in. Wires are all hooked back up, and we're in the middle of dissecting the stock harness to hook it in. Of course, I told you guys earlier about that red wire that we found that is 12 volts. Cranking, run, and accessory, all those positions work. So that's ready to go. Started wiring up the box here, and I'm running my main cables from these blocks all the way around the back of the engine, keep things nice and smooth. And also, this is the meat and potatoes of the harness here. This has got the fuel pump and all your relays and the wires. And this pink wire here, guys, remember me telling you about the red wire that we've got to switch voltage 12 volts all the time? This is the pink wire. You're going to connect it to this. That's going to feed power to this thing. And then I've got a yellow wire here and a couple others I need to hook up. Then it's just a matter of hiding it and trying to make it look neat. Now, of course, this looks extremely terrible right now. We've actually got to lengthen some wires out too, because we're going to run our main power and ground back around the bottom of the radiator support to avoid running more wires on the back of this engine, because it's already a rat's nest as it is back there. So we're trying to avoid that. So while he's working on running these wires, I'm going to work on splicing in and getting this harness ready to run to the fuel pump. So we are definitely moving really well with this thing. So for the faint of heart, this is all the wires that come along with the Sniper, and it does look a lot worse than it actually is. So, however, this blue is fuel pump. So they give you a ton of wire to get back here to the fuel pump. So I've got to go through here and straighten this out. But I just want to show you guys how big of a mess this is going to start out looking, and how awesome it's going to look when we get everything tucked. Alright guys, so we got the rest of the harness up front, kind of going together, starting to go together. So I went ahead and mounted the actual controller just a second ago. So what I ended up doing here, just to show you guys, I talked about the cubby hole. The original intentions here was to mount this Sniper into this cubby hole. However, what I did notice is that I may want to be able to access this thing and get it out and have to service it or update it or whatever I might have to do. So what I decided to do was use some 3M two-sided and some Velcro, so I can actually pop this thing out and you know, pull it down to here, hook a laptop to it, whatever I need to do here. If in case something breaks, I can actually get to it, so I don't actually lose my storage bin either. And I kind of thought on the fly being able to make adjustments was kind of cool. So if I'm sitting here and I need to bump timing, I can just sit in traffic and bump timing a little, or whatever I want to do. It's just kind of handy, and it's visually just kind of nice there. Maybe that screen won't be so bright and in your face right here. So alright boys, so I spared you from all the wire tucking and all the time it took to wire all this up, but there was a lot of stuff involved as far as getting these wires going, and it turned out really neat. So just real quick, I wanted to show you guys how awesome this turned out. It looks fantastic. Routing on that's nice. Everything's tucked over here. Goes around the back of the engine and you'd never really know it. So that turned out really good. I do have my cutouts still disconnected because we're not even close to being ready for any of that yet. So I've left all that. And also over here, you see I've got tons of wires. So a lot of these are for fan, like, you know, electric fan, a sub. Then you've got the two wires that also run the Holley coming in, and all of these over here. And if you're going to do this Sniper kit, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. The fuel pump that comes with the kit that I have is only good to 500 horsepower. And on an old body style Silverado, there is some serious pains to making that pump go on the fuel. As far as there's some serious pains to getting this pump on your frame rail. So we're going to have to go over that later. Right now it's still kind of up in the air, so I'm gonna have to you know, call Holley. Might have to go through some stuff with them because I want to get a pump that goes inside my tank. I don't want to run this on the frame rail because there's no room, and all this is hard lined. It's really hard to tie this in. I'll show you guys that a little later. But as far as the ignition system, we are wrapping things up. Still haven't hooked up my O2. Still got to do something with that, but I've got some excess wires over here. It's just a lot of wires. It's consuming me on this OBS truck of the old wires. As you guys can see, I'm trying my best to hide the wires from the Sniper inside of this, and it is becoming a challenge. But we're definitely getting closer. You know, definitely getting closer. And there's a lot of wires that tie together. So a lot of this stuff that you're seeing here, these all three get tied together. Because it's going to go to a 12 volt power source. Yellow wire, if you guys are running Hyperspark, gets omitted. You won't need it. And the white wire goes into your accessory harness, which I've actually got laying over here. So this is the accessory harness. The only wire it picks up is the white wire. It's to send a signal back. So other than that, and I get to unpin all the other ones, we only need the white one. So there is a lot of work here. So I've still got several details to iron out. I've got several things I've got to get, going with on this. But I just wanted to kind of, walk you guys through this and kind of show you some of the aches and pains of the sniper and some of the stuff that works out really well. Now, I did go ahead and switch the throttle bracket, and there is no problems with that. I moved it from the top to bottom. I do have my fuel system hooked up, if you guys can see it down there. Fuel lines are in 3/8 line, and I did use the 5/16 on the other side, just slid it over. It was a little tough to get it started, but it did go. So we were able to use all the stock lines. As far as the harness and stuff, they do have a nice little clip here at the back, which that's where I'm running all my wires through. Now, keep in mind, all the stuff is going to get hidden by that cover, so you won't see any of this. And I still have some tidying up to do. There's some main wires down here that I need to hide a little better, but for the most part, I have everything pretty well hidden other than what the cover would normally hide. But man, this thing is just a lot of work. It is a ton of work. And I've got my wires going in the dash. Everything's good there. So, guys, this is going to be a super long video. It's day 2. Day 1 consisted of basically tearing everything down and starting to set the TBI unit on. It's just so much work. These sniper kits are a lot of work. If you watch their videos, they're going to make it seem like, oh yeah, you can just plug this in, plug that. No, it is not just plug this in, plug that in. It is a lot of work, especially on a truck like, an old body style or something that already has a lot of wires in general. It's just, the problem with these trucks is there's so many old wires that you don't use that you're just kind of working around them. And I think that's probably the biggest ache and pain of doing it on this truck. Now, like Dad's Camaro over here, man, it's got like 7 or 8 wires that runs the whole thing, Like, I've got 7 or 8 wires in one loom going across, so it's just, it's overwhelming. But we're getting there. It's definitely getting there. So, just kind of updating you guys as I get along. I get a little bit more stuff done. I don't want to bore you to death with just watching me splice and dice wires and trying to hide everything. But there you go, guys. There's your little sniper update for day 2. I think we did pretty good. We got a lot of stuff done today. There was a lot of things that needed adjustment, a lot of things that had some issues, and I think we moved through them pretty good. Now, day 3, though, is going to be intense because we're going to try to finish the ignition system on day 3 and have everything good to go. The only other thing that I'm unsure of is this pump, this fuel pump issue. And I will get back with you guys on that. Right now, I'm going to go online, actually. I'm going to look up a couple different pumps. I want to put the sender, back in the stock sending unit. So we're going to put the pump in the sending unit that'll carry the sniper system with 60 PSI. I think it needs like 58.5. But we're going to go and look at that. It may be a few more days till you see a video, just because if I get the ignition system done, I'm really down the home stretch and I need the pump, and I just have to see how fast I can get the pump. We've got a shutdown coming up in my plant, so I've got 2 weeks off, guys. So I've got 2 weeks to figure this out. I think we can do it. I think we're actually within about 2 or 3 days if I had to pump. I was hoping to do this a little sooner, but we had some delays, had some setbacks. But guys, if you've stuck with me through this, thank you so much for watching. I don't know if I've said this before, but you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. We just hit it like here recently, and you guys, the support is just awesome. And it's with you guys helping, watching, and interacting. It helps so much. It helps build the channel, and it actually helps keep things going on the channel. Because that's the big thing is your involvement in this is as big as mine. Without you guys, I can't do this stuff. You guys help me out as well. You give me something to look forward to on the weekends when I come home from work. I get to play with this thing. So anyways, guys, we're going to cap it off there. Next video series, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out. So thank you guys for watching. And until next time, take it easy.